And you're live now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight on March 13th. It's our meeting of the Fair Access Committee. First order of business to adopt the minutes for the February meeting, which I circulated earlier. Could somebody make a motion, please?
So moved.
Nancy, anybody second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. We talked last meeting about having a discussion about the high school playing fields and the condition of them and what's possibility in terms of improving them. Ed and Alan have both been doing a lot of good work trying to figure out what the status is and what kinds of things might be doable. So I thought it'd be good for them to come in and tell us what's going on, and then we can ask some questions. And if there's any way we can help, we will, obviously. But if you want to, you're going to start, Alan? Or?
Yeah, I'll get it started and I'll pass it over to Alan, all right, because it's something that Alan and I have been talking about for some time, and that's really looking at the, what are some of the challenges that we see with the athletic side of the house over at Poolesville, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to come in and just really learn a little bit about some of the history. Then what are some of those things that you might see as the pressing needs over at, over at school, and then maybe looking at how we might be able to help support to make sure that Poolesville is getting this fair, equitable treatment compared to some of the other schools around the county. All right, and I'll turn it over.
Yep, so, all right, well, thanks for having me. Ed and I had a conversation with Dr. Jeffrey Sullivan, Director of Statewide Athletics for MCPS, last Friday. He is in the process of the 25 high schools in Montgomery County at least having one artificial turf field. We currently have our main stadium field's Bermuda, which is great, but there's antiquated irrigation systems that they've approved, MCPS has approved budget-wise. It's going to be about double what they have once they get it all done. But what we're really missing is our practice fields. Our practice fields, due to the enlarged parking lot, we lost soccer practice field. We still have our baseball and softball, but our main practice field behind the stadium is used for every PE class, football, boys and girls lacrosse, and it's getting abused. They don't have a chance to ever actually any rest whatsoever. Grow, we can sprig it, it takes 3 years, but if you're on it all the time, it's never going to be. So we also have a backfield behind the track that is kind of the track and field part, but it's the field part where shot put and discus go. It's not really a field. It's more of a, during the weekends, people walk their dogs, they ride, but it needs some maintenance in order to become a field, which I think will eliminate and help us have other sports play on that. Now, another issue is we are using other elementary schools and middle schools' fields in order to have the ability to utilize lacrosse, soccer, field hockey. So what I'm looking for is if we can get Fair Access, have they done such a great job with getting the academic portion of the high school, is to advocate on the athletic campus. Now, it's also my understanding, and that was on the call, we are the only major project and renovation school in Montgomery County that has not gotten anything outside as an athletic resource at all, other than the gym, which we all fought for, well, you guys fought for and advocated. So what we're looking for is we're going to have a meeting, don't know dates yet, TBD, but Dr. Sullivan will come out. We'll have a couple of the heads from MCPS, athletics maintenance, Mark Carruthers, Gina Grubb, the athletic specialist. Fair Access is obviously welcome, but we're going to do a nice site visit, so they can actually see the antiquated and the old part of the high school. Like I said, I know Jeff is he is angling for an artificial turf, which will, I think, I'm 50-50. Look, in my profession of professional sports and my NFL clientele, I know it's 50-50 split between the NFL League and the union on what's best. The other benefit for a turf field is we can use it all the time, and there's no scheduling conflicts with weather. Our field has drainage issues. It's wet. It doesn't drain well. There's actually puddles in certain areas, like the visitor side, where the kids have to stand on it. It needs to be revamped. Like I said, the irrigation system approved. Don't have a date for installation, but I don't want to go ahead, or I shouldn't say I prefer not to have taxpayer dollars and others spend a couple $100,000 when if it's going to be ripped out in a couple years for an artificial field. But so what I'm looking for basically is for fair access, to help advocate and, for the smartest, the most resourceful, and the best use. I did a little bit of research relative, if we did get a turf field, we would save the couple $100,000 for irrigation, the installation of the lines, but also the water usage, which I did pull some records off last week. And for the town itself, we could save hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a year between spring and fall, where the water gets, but again, if we go back and we keep the Bermuda, that's just another year of, several thousand, tens of thousands of dollars that Montgomery County doesn't have to save or doesn't have to spend. But again, it's really, we've lost fields. We haven't had the ability to replenish any, except for going outside of the high school campus and going to parks and other schools. So, I'm really here tonight to speak on behalf of, let's get our meeting let's get our site visit done. Let's advocate for the county and MCPS, our relationships that we have, so everybody can look at it and see what the best course of action is. And it's not just fields. Our buildings are old. Our dugouts are old. Our press box for the baseball is dilapidated, for lack of a better word. But, we just got to figure out how we can use our resources to benefit, since everything is now a financial halt. It's a financial halt. We all know it's budget related. But again, I want to make sure Poolesville's not forgotten, and the school's fantastic, but we need we need it all encompassing between academic and athletic. So that's my thought. Again, just some feedback. Ed, it's basically what Jeff had summed up. He was a little bummed he couldn't come out tonight between 6 and 8, but again, he's ready to come out, and they will bring some of the leadership of MCPS and the maintenance department to come out. And
What day is this?
it'll be determined, TBD, yeah. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be Principal Carruthers, Gina, myself,
And
Fair Access.
Which school board members?
So we have to set it up, and so we haven't set a date yet.
Okay.
But so what we wanted to do today is come in and make sure the members of Fair Access it's really make sure everybody's aware of the challenges. And I know we spend a lot of time advocating for different things, whether it's the rec center that we need, whether it's the pool bubble, whether when it was the school. And while it's great to have not a totally new school, because they build onto it, but it's great to see what they've done with the shell. But the athletics has been shortchanged. And what happens with Poolesville is that we are always rolling up our sleeves, taking one on the chin, waiting in the queue, and then getting back in the queue. And then it's when you're watching some of these other schools, like Seneca Valley, which is probably the largest school in Maryland, and you got this state-of-the-art field from the scoreboard to the turf, and then you look at Crown that's being built, and that's going to have a field. You look at Wheaton, they got one, but you look at the other school, you got the holding school for where Northwood is, the old Woods, what is it? Woodward, the old Woodward. And so you look at those facilities, and then you hear the conversation toward the boosters, when boosters is looking to invest, And the challenge they say is, well, you can't do that because it's not equitable to other schools, but yet Poolesville is left out of the equity side of fairness because all these other
Raise our own
schools,
money, but we also can't get money from.
and then you can't spend your money, you know, because.
And that's the biggest thing. Look, I'm also the vice president of Booster Club, and the fact of the matter is, we are one of the probably 3 or 4 booster clubs in the county that have we're financially solvent. We have a lot of fundraisers, we have a great community that gives, have a lot of dedication, but when we go and ask permission to use a couple $1,000s, nope, can't do it because this school doesn't have that resource, or that school doesn't have it.
So crazy.
So what happens
I
is,
thought whenever I donate to the school or to the booster club,
Boosters,
is I'm like, well, I know we're not getting it from the school board, but at least our
Right.
community can support the athletics.
so we do offset, obviously, we do offset some of the athletic of Gina's budget because we have to, and we want to. But we have to ask permission before forgiveness instead of the other way around sometimes. There's, I know Link and Ed have this, but there's an à la carte menu items that Mark Carruthers did a couple years ago. And literally, it was maybe 15 things, and I think 2 things were approved. And it was just 2 smallest things.
Yeah.
Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Can't. So if we have the resources and we want to make Poolesville and their students and their community better, we can't be penalized for that. And that's my issue. Like, why can't we? I mean, like, we almost beg to spend money.
Well, you won't give us the money.
Right,
You also won't let us fundraise the money.
right.
Well, let's spend it. We can fundraise, won't let us spend the money. So going back,
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the point of fundraising if you can't
Right.
spend it on the things you want to do?
well, we're good stewards, right? And I'm a member, in all disclosure, I'm a member of the Booster Club, the Booster Club, and our kids who play sports, and we benefit from that. And so this past season, I had a really good chance to see firsthand with my daughter playing soccer and playing flag football, from running across from the high school football practice to going down to, I think it was Elgin Park, to practice soccer.
That's ridiculous.
Organizing carpools, but running. And I thought about, if you're practicing at the park down the street and you compete against someone who's practicing on a true field, I mean, just say a field, don't even get into the fact that the turf on the field and the layout of the field it's if you practice on that and you play on that, you have a better chance of winning your competition. But we look at the impact on our residents who play these sports and scheduling. And when you're at the mercy of another school's availability for what would have been your home game is no longer your home game, and you got a game on Tuesday, then a game on Thursday, and you don't really have, the athlete doesn't have the rest time. And then when I look at it from a town perspective, there's nobody rushing to rent the field over at the high school. But other schools that have more attractive fields, there's an economic development component for that community. When you host tournaments, you have events outside of the school. And so ICB rents out the fields.
Yeah, turf fields get used all the time.
You look at who's using those fields, and I think about with the ferry being closed and our small business owners out here, they would benefit from some foot traffic coming in and out. And while sometimes you might have folks who rent out the polo fields for lacrosse tournaments or the farm down the street, but sometimes people bypass coming through town to get over to like the polo field.
Yeah.
And so we think about what is the benefits for our town. And then again, so for today, the goal was to come in and really make sure that this group, our Fair Access Committee, has the insight about what's going on. And then as a committee, see if this is something that we can get behind. And then if we're in agreement that this is an initiative that we could support for the long haul, then we go into the strategy piece of how do we make sure those who make decisions that affect us, that they come out and see the things they say no to, but when you're right there on the site, a good example, if you're talking about irrigation, And so we go out, if we go out and say, okay, you say, well, you can't do this, and Alan knows some of the things that we've
Yeah.
been told no about, but yet we have people right in the booster club who go out and they install new installations, whether it's the what is it called, what Muddy does? With the
Excavation, I mean,
Excavation.
so, you know,
what's that for?
one of our, you know, so one of our colleagues, he actually has, his company has actually installed turf field at Kennedy and other schools throughout the county. So he knows everything about that part of the scope of work. Look, a turf field's 1.2 to 1.4 million. That's what it is. Now, we also had the track overlaid a couple years ago. I'm sure that was a couple $100,000. So my argument through years of presidents, Booster Club meetings with all the presidents of each high school's club, plus Jeff and some of his staff, Montgomery County has always never had a thorough process. They just please people with our taxpayer dollars to you know, kind of shut the people up, or, you know, that person, instead of just saying, hey, if we have a plan, we can save 200 for there, 200 for there, that's 400,000 we just fixed. If we just take that extra couple years to plan the project accordingly. It's smart growth. It's not just, let's do it, and then check that off the list. But you can't put the final product on before you do the research and the design part of it. It's just, it's not good economics. And you multiply that by every school, it's tens of millions of dollars wasted through the county of not good, efficient protocols, in my opinion. But, you know, but again, there's a lot to discuss about it. But again, there's a lot, I mean, like the concession stand's old, the plumbing's old. I mean, the school's old. You know, it hasn't been touched forever.
Yeah.
You know, and we maintain it as much as possible based on volunteers, you know, maintenance, grass cutting. I mean, there's a bunch of us that, you know, cut on weekends, you know, because it grows so fast, you can't rely on one person, Gina, to cut 8 acres a day while she's teaching and giving PA or PE classes and working with every other teams.
Is the athletic director in charge of maintaining the field?
Yes.
Yes.
There's not a separate
No.
outdoor crew? that cuts
MCPS,
all that grass?
MCPS do not like coming out here, and they don't.
Do the other
Oh, but the
larger
other
schools
places
do?
have-
They got, so that's.
Same thing.
Like at
Glad you
Seneca
bring that
Valley,
up.
are you telling me their athletic directors out there cutting their
We don't got
grass?
to cut it on the artificial field.
They got turf.
You got-
Yep.
So I remember years ago in my administrative days, our AD, he would get on the riding lawnmower and go out and cut the grass, line the fields. And so when you think about a small school that plays the same number of games as a big school, but a big school has more staff and more people that you can deploy to do things. In a small school, everybody's doing twice the work as a big school because you got less people. So going back to what we're looking for is being able to be clear on what the situation is, and then once we have clarity on what the challenges are, then being able to examine, are there some practices that can be improved, you know, in terms of what's just, as we say, fair access. Well, our athletic program getting the fair access, not from the school because they're all doing what they can do, but where we could step in is really analyzing the process. And then, as I told Jeff, when Alan and I spoke with Jeff, is that the way we work, we believe in partnering with organizations, partnering with decision makers, and really being able to not have a shouting match, but to sit down in a spirit of cooperation. And let's find out where's the knot of productivity, and let's untangle the knot so that we can just make sure we're helping move things along in a fair way. And it seems like Poolesville is often neglected when it comes to those things.
So let me just
Okay.
make sure I'm clear on this. So Sullivan is state, he's not county?
He's county. Oh, no.
county.
Oh, yeah.
So he's head of
He's
all-
statewide athletics, correct.
Okay, all right.
He has two hats. So
Oh, yeah.
his
Okay, yeah,
his position in MCPS is he's over the athletics in Montgomery County.
Right.
But in addition to that,
Athletics, you mean the actual, the sports program itself, not the fields and the
That's part of it.
MPSSAA,
That's all,
correct.
right, so he
Yes.
represents
He
MCPS.
also has a state position?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
County and state.
Now, he works with other county, Anne Arundel County, Washington County,
Yeah.
in
Very
order to get.
knowledgeable. He just received the prestigious award.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
I was part of that focus group. You know, I was asked by, some of the MCPS, because I've known Jeff for a while.
Yeah.
But I sat on the focus group and actually gave testimony to probably about 12 people on a panel, and he got it. And then we went over Monday, Tuesday, something like that, and he received the award, and,
Yeah.
but it's good.
In the interest of fair disclosure, when we were finally able to get Andrew Friedson in particular, but also the Board of Education committed to redo our school, part of that process was the design they initially submitted, and the initial design was actually getting rid of our old gym, it's still there.
Yep.
And then upgrading or modernizing the existing new gym, but not expanding it or make it into a full-size gym. And so we decided at that point, that had to be our key focus, is getting the right gym, the right
Correct.
size gym for us, and keeping the old gym, because every other school has two gyms.
Yes.
We were able to do that, but in that process, it was pretty clear when we talked to Seth, who was then the Director of Facilities Planning, that we weren't going to get the fields done.
Right.
And we were obviously ticked off, because we said the same thing. I mean, Seneca Valley had it, why can't we get it?
Yeah.
But basically, they said, look, we're spending a lot of money on all this stuff. They didn't tell us to pound sand, but they basically said, come back later and we'll get that done later, because they're going to construction anyway. It's going to be hard to get stuff on there to get it done. So frankly, we did accept it. We didn't accept the idea we weren't getting our fields done.
Right.
Except the idea that, okay, we're going to get this because it's so important.
Right, and I know they're getting a smaller field behind the gym. I mean, it's like a 30 or 40-yard field. It's not, maybe they'll utilize that for more PE.
For gym class,
Yeah, exactly, PE classes.
not actually practice.
Right. So,
It seems to me that probably what the best thing for us to do is to really have this, whatever this tour, whenever
Yes.
this site visit happens.
correct.
To be there, so we can actually
100%.
understand what it is that everybody thinks can be done.
And meet the people who are part of the decision.
Right.
Right.
And this is the leadership, and these will be the
Put together
the
something that
leaders.
makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what it is. We look at it as a long process.
Yeah, it will.
And I would say the later is now, right?
Yeah.
Later's gone, now is now.
Right. No, I agree.
And so part of that, I see probably like three different phases. Phase one is like, let's talk to fair access and see if we can get the benefit of what we do here on our committee. Second piece is and it sounds like, this is a good plan, a good move, so a good piece to get behind, right? And so now that next piece is, let's take a deeper dive and develop a partnership with those who make decisions that affect our folks. And then there's the next layer of those who have to make decisions based on the recommendations of the leaders within there, because it's tied into funding.
I mean, even the practice field, that's a full field behind the stadium. I mean, we talked about actually making it wider, bringing it closer to the stadium, and then we have to take down some trees, but making it two, like, 60-yard fields or 70-yard fields. So you can have two different sports utilizing that space instead of the football, JV and varsity football using one whole field. We can do it, but again, you got a lot of, you got to take some trees down, you got to get approvals. There was another thing that, I advocated for years ago. It was a safety shelter. So it was 28 by 20. It was behind a concession stand. It was really because when if you've never been there, it's hot, now it's summertime, the guys are 2-a-days in football, the practicing people use it to come up and train. If a storm comes up in the summer, you have no place to go. There's nothing there. There's nothing. You have an we call equipment sheds where all the mowers and the gators or stuff are in. So when it storms, you have 30 people jammed up into this area that is just not safe. But if we had this safety shelter, the trainer, Jeremy, can go ahead and work on the guys, and they're not all sitting on top of each. So there's a lot that goes in, but to completely just say, no, you can't do it because not every other school has it. Not every school, but most schools do have it. So you can't just say it's not equitable.
Or maybe
well-
we need customized solutions because we are a small school.
Right.
And you can't keep comparing us to these large populations.
100%. And so Mark
Because
did,
we have smaller space that we have to make do with, and we're gonna have to be creative.
Well, and it's not just the smaller space, right? I mean, it's like you were talking about, the county people aren't going to come up here to mow, so, I mean, that may lead to making certain decisions about turf or whatever. But I mean, I think like you're saying that, as we've done with everything else, right? Equitable access doesn't mean
Right.
the same.
Correct.
So, it does seem like you guys have done,
And Mark's done some due diligence. He went to every, he was annoyed, and he went to every school and took pictures of everything that we wanted, and majority of the schools had it, and they're like, nope,
good.
So it's okay, it's okay. Look, I have patience like a saint, and I'm in here for the long haul, and you know what? It's fine. I'm just gonna keep, advocating and annoying people in a positive manner.
I wonder if, it's not, like, two things I heard seemed maybe helpful. So, I mean, first, Link, you were saying that you agreed to not do the fields in the first
We
round.
didn't agree to it. What we said was that it's,
accepted
to us, the most important thing is getting
Right.
this gym. If
Right,
we can
right.
get that done,
But-
we will
but-
feel happy, but we're not satisfied.
But it was in the context of, it sounds
Yeah.
like, a discussion that wasn't a final end to
Right.
it. That
They knew we weren't
Right,
satisfied.
so that there would be a next round.
Right.
So, I mean, it can easily be presented as, we're so grateful for the school, it's coming to a close, and now, we have
start
this next
planning for the
we
next
need it,
phase.
right, like, it's almost a taken for granted, right? Like, this is what we all agreed to, that there would be a next
Yeah,
Right, the later.
phase.
yeah.
And
I mean,
then,
yeah. and,
the
you know-
money that you were talking about for the irrigation,
Yes.
that's already been allocated,
It's approved,
approved?
it's been approved, has not been scheduled.
Okay,
Now, my argument, that's just for the irrigation line. That has nothing to do with putting the sod back down on the field.
Right.
Getting it to grow again. So you can, and it's been safe, we talked about, you can double that. It's $150,000. That would be what it would cost taxpayers, Montgomery County, however you want to say it. But again, I don't want to say, yes, let's do the irrigation, and then 2 years later, they say, hey, we're going to give you a new field.
right, but that's what I'm saying might be the opening, right? Where you could say, we know you've already approved this amount of money
Yep.
to support our fields. Maybe we can use this as the beginning of what we can build.
Yep.
And maybe it's, like you said, not the best use if we're going to think about this from the beginning.
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming you guys have a good sense of what the full package would look like that you think would make sense for our context.
Oh, yeah.
That could be presented on this
And part
visit.
of that is developing that context with Jeff. So I go back to that, invite him over, partner
Yep,
up.
right.
And Jeff has a vision that he shared with Alan and I. And that vision was making sure that all the schools in Montgomery County had safe, turf fields. And that, because there's a lot of things a lot of benefits that come with that. And then part of that is being able to, in each community, listen and address concerns that people have, because not all turf fields are the same. And some of the arguments of the older turf fields have been dealt with, so they're not the same, is because there used to be a lot of concern about health concerns about turf fields. But then you got to dig a little deeper and say, okay, which turf fields are we talking about? Ones from 20 years ago, all right, or ones that are today, the material and so forth. So I'm glad that we were able to come in today, have Alan come in. Gina would have been here, but she had meet the coaches. She's one athletic director, and so nevertheless, if we're in agreement, then we'll work on scheduling that next site visit, and then kind of take it from there. And what Alan and I envision, we would have a site visit, but then have a sit-down discussion after the site visit, and then we could talk about those next steps.
And,
I assume Sullivan reports to the superintendent.
correct, him and Thomas, yes.
So I think I told you that I had a discussion with Thomas on something else, and I just happened to mention this.
Yep.
And he said something along the lines of, I'm not optimistic. Just
Yeah,
telling you.
He was at,
Yeah, but he's thinking about it in the context of the bigger budget. That's
Yep.
what he's thinking.
no, and I know I had saw him at the award ceremony, because he had actually brought Jeff in.
Yeah.
And, we were talking a little, Thomas and I were talking about it a little bit, and, I was talking about his 169-page budget, and he's like, it's going to be challenging, but we know that.
Yeah.
But you know what? He's optimistic. He's got a lot more important things to do, but again, we can be that grease on that squeaky wheel, and that's fine.
We do.
But again, it's why I'm here today to present it, and I just want to make sure that, the town and Gina and the high school and the students and the staff understand that, they've lived the last couple years in construction mode, and they need a reprieve. Now, I was also told that we can't have any actually outside contractors to do any work at the school until Dustin is done, completed, which I don't know if that's accurate or not. It doesn't sound like accuracy to me, but again, I just.
Is that
you
like
know,
an insurance kind of thing?
I
Like something?
I don't know what that is. I mean, there's other vendors and contractors that come down and do, work orders and stuff like that for the school as well, so. Maybe a major project, so, but there's a lot of little things. I mean, I noted the other day about, running kind of pretty intimate, familiar with the concession stand since we do all the grilling and stuff for the fall. And we've been failed on a couple building services health inspections for 2 years, almost 3 years in August, and they haven't fixed them yet.
Yeah.
3 years.
Right.
So that was one of the first things. Now, look, I mean, you're talking bath fans and replacing a steel door, and they have not done it for 3
I mean,
years.
those things seem like
Yeah.
you have to give
I
them.
mean, but again, I almost felt like saying, when I meet the HHS inspector, Vanita Padar, I'd be like, hey, Vanita, why don't you come and just fail us, please? Just so you can actually send your report to the MCPS and be like, what's the problem? It's 3 years
Yeah.
now? Like, I feel like I'm almost being spiteful,
Yeah.
but I can't because that's not my nature. I'm like, I just want to continue to help PHS and everybody keep moving forward. And you know what? It's, in the essence, it's on the report. It's their responsibility, It's not ours. We're compliant. I mean,
Everything you can do.
right, I mean, look, I'm certified food manager, allergen certified. I mean, I'm all that because I needed to be that compliance officer per se when they do show up and they do test your food and everything. So,
So I have just one somewhat cynical question, and I think I know what the answer is, but coming out of your comment, and I'm assuming we wouldn't even be having this conversation if the answer to this was one answer. With all the conversation now about all the cuts for the MCPS budget, I mean, I'm 100% on board with this, 100%. And I'm 100% on board with getting it done as quickly as we can. Is there any sense that this particular moment is, like, it would be worth waiting a couple months or something? Like, how much is everybody panicking? You guys are at the table much more than I am for this, about the school budget at the moment.
I would say at the moment, it's important to get in the pipeline.
Okay.
Right, because when
That's what I
I'm
figured.
looking at the downtown Crown,
Yep.
all right, and you look at what's happening and who's getting what, it's kind of like, even though, yeah, there's some hardship, but not everyone's having hardship,
Yep. Okay.
and yeah.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to.
But even to your point, though, too, Nancy, I think scheduling this site visit and then having a discussion about it and trying to pull together what that all looks like, we're talking probably a couple months anyway, I would think, to get.
I would probably say.
It's a good package.
Yeah, I'd say within 2. I would say maybe even next month, depending. I
Okay,
mean, I can.
So it's going to be a little while anyway.
April, May.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good. All right.
But, I think it's essential. You know what? It gives everybody the perspective and the optics of what we're really up
Yeah.
against. And you know what? As we all know, people don't like to come out of Poolesville.
Me,
It's too
I
far,
think
it's
the
45.
objective
Well, I don't like to
of
leave
everybody
Poolesville. That's the problem. I don't want to go out of Poolesville. We just have a hard time people coming into Poolesville.
One of the keys to our success is when every year in August, we always submit a budget letter
Yep.
to the county executive and copy all the council members because we know that the agencies are putting together their budgets.
Yep.
So if we have this ready, so we can actually put this as
Right.
part of the package,
Yeah.
I think that's good timing.
Right, and then the other thing is Link, I believe, I forwarded you the emails from Mark's letter, and I can't recall if there's a monetary amount, but, I mean, you're talking new fence, new field, I mean, you're talking millions of dollars, because
Right.
they're like, don't piecemeal, give me the whole thing, and he spent weeks going to every school, taking pictures, comparables, and, to his own credit, he was annoyed because he kept getting shot down on certain things, and it was Booster Club money that was saying, we'll pay for it, just give us the blessing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you raise. Now, there's other schools, I mean, for instance, Blake, last year, they didn't have a Booster Club for 4 years. How does Blake not have a Booster Club operating for 4 years?
Yeah.
Watkins Mill needs something. You know what? we've given money to other schools that didn't have essentials, a couple thousand to help
I mean,
them
our
here.
taxes have been subsidizing their schools
100%
for decades.
for a long time. I remember when I first lived here and my girls were in elementary school, I think it was astronomical. 72 cents of every dollar went down county. I mean, like, it was something, and I think it's even more now, but to each his own. I mean, I just want to make sure that Poolesville isn't forgotten in the athletic. Now that we have a beautiful school, I don't want it to stop there. I want our kids to be able to be
The full experience.
full experience. And you know what? I want to have, if they want to do a turf field and we play against other schools that have turf field, ball goes faster, kids run faster. We on a turf, it slows down the game a little bit, So there's a lot to it. And this is just a baby steps to get into the door. But you know what? I wanted to come in and at least give you a perspective. There's obviously a lot more. But again, thank, Ed for jumping on the call with Jeff. We made it happen quickly. And like I said, he's a huge advocate for us. And I want to use the resources we have. And
While we have them.
while we have them.
Yeah.
So, it's okay to ask. And it's okay for people to say no, but it's also okay to say same thing again.
Are we ultimately looking for a turf field? Is that what we want?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
That's also another key to our success is we've always not just focused on the council and the Board of Education, the elected people, but also the administrators.
Yeah.
You've got to talk to them.
Yep.
We got a good relationship with Seth, and that's one of the reasons we got the school.
Yeah.
I mean, he was hard to deal with, but we got to know him, and he helped. In the end, he
Well, transparency goes a long way in negotiations. You might not agree on everything, but you can always come to a midpoint,
Right.
my belief.
I think it makes sense to bring them up here to take a look,
yeah.
Because, I worked over here for 4 years. I know what those fields look like, and the one you're talking about behind the stadium, behind the field, that's just where people basically walk their dogs. There's wasted
It
space.
is. Kids ride their motorcycles on the weekend
Yeah.
up there. I mean, there's everything. And there's, it's,
It's a launching ground for the fireworks.
yeah.
All right, so it sounds like we
Right.
got clarity, we got some next steps. And Alan and I will proceed with
Awesome.
getting the meeting scheduled and inviting folks over. Of course, everyone in Fair Access is welcome to come,
Yeah.
and we'll take it from there.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me present.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.
sir.
Thanks for the work.
I mean,
Really good.
What's that?
I called you Buck, but I'm just messing
Yeah,
with you.
don't- You know
I'm
what,
sitting
Ed?
in hot
Link
seat
and I are
right
going to take
now.
the next call.
Yeah. All right, good to see you there, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Just quickly, the next item is budget overview. Just want to let you know where we are on that. The operating budget, actually, I just found out it's not the 15th, it's the 14th. It's going to be released.
Okay.
Don't know what's in it, obviously, at this point. We are
That's
still.
Is that Friday then?
That's Friday.
Tomorrow.
That's
Yeah,
tomorrow.
We don't know what's in it. We're still hoping that the pool bubble will be in there, but who knows? But it's coming out. We'll take a look at it. If there's not in there, obviously, we'll try to say something.
Okay.
The testimony is normally the second week of April, so I'll let you know more about the timing, but we certainly are going to testify regardless. Because we also have one co-funding, we want to reinforce how to be in there and not cut.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in danger of being cut, but we just have to keep reinforcing it. There's also a budget listening session on May 1st. It's supposed to be capital budget, but again, if we can get a crowd there to, it's always a good thing to have us there. And if we could even, mention when we get the chance, if we get a question, the fields. It's always a
Who's
good chance.
hosting
Get it on the
the-
radar screen. It's not a bad
Who's
idea.
hosting the budget listening session?
It's hosted by Mark Elrich.
Mark will be there.
Mark,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So it starts usually at 6:30. I'll get the timing exactly, but it'll be nice to get some people from our area down there
Yep.
attend that. The other thing I wanted to mention in the context of this is that for this reason exactly, Alan, you guys raising this, it just shows you in the budget pressures we're facing that I think we have to reinforce, and Sarah talked about it a little bit tonight too, and Nancy did too, that we have come a long way, but the issues of equity still remain. So I put together a timeline that tried to give you a sense of what's happening, what's happened with our school in particular as a focus, but also other things that we didn't have or had cut out in our area. For example, most people don't know, there actually was a clinic out here for 8 years, and it was closed in 1989. We also know, and that's why I have this little thing at the bottom here, that the small size of our high school was always a threat for us. We always had the chance of losing our high school. We actually had Monocacy Elementary School, they wanted to close in 2009. So we know the pressures are always there to get rid of some of our facilities. So I think it'd be good to reinforce this again with a video after the budget testimony. So this is an outline. I also sent you guys a storyline that we're working on, and Laura's already starting to put together some thoughts on that. And we're going to do some interviews on Monday. I've already got Skip lined up because he was very knowledgeable about what some of the pressures were to close the school. Some of you may know Liz Smith, but she was one of the early PTA leaders. We were both kind of high school PTA leaders. I was one, then she was one, so we went back and forth for several years trying to advocate for the high school. She can really speak to the fact that, you know, we were always on the modernization list, and we got taken off. It happened over and over again. We had people on buses. So the idea is to have a video that just reminds them again, you know, we still have those equity issues that took 30 years of trying to get to where we are now.
Yeah.
We're grateful that we got some of this stuff, but we got more work to do.
Don't tell us,
Yeah.
now you've gotten what you want, now stop asking.
Right,
Because
exactly.
We've been ignored for
That's the danger.
decades.
That's the danger. So that's the intent of that. I don't know, any other questions on the budget, and where we are at this point? Nancy, is there anything on the advisory commissions you wanted to update us on or mention?
No, I mean, there've been a couple things that have come up, and we've talked and just gone with the Facebook post.
Right.
I don't know if they've yielded anything, but we haven't asked people to let us know if they're applying.
Yeah.
So
That planning commission one, if I remember right, it's actually, you get compensated for that one.
you get compensated.
It's a
but
full-time job.
Huge amount of
Yeah,
work.
I'm not sure people
Yeah.
want to do it, but it's a
like-
lot of
It
work.
was like one day a week, like you have to go
Yeah.
get meetings all day and then some other stuff. So I mean,
So
it's
a job,
legitimately
actually.
compensated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a full-time job, but it's, I forget what the pay was like,
It wasn't a lot.
$25,000 or something like that, but.
Yeah.
But it was
Sounds
a,
like
but it
it's
wasn't,
2
it
days a
wasn't
week
like
or
a,
something.
go to a monthly
Yeah.
evening meeting or something like that.
Okay.
So I think that would be a hard one to see.
Well, thanks for keeping on top of that. I really appreciate it. It's helpful. And I guess the next meeting we'll have Linda Burkowski come from the Advisory
Linda's
Commission on
coming,
Aging,
And Abby from Library.
the Libraries Commission.
Oh, yay.
Good.
That'll be great to hear about both those.
There'll be some good input there, I'm sure. Sarah, did you want to talk a little bit about the Ag Center meeting and, you know,
Sure.
at the
Sure,
end of that,
we,
we had some ideas that came out of that.
Yep, we had a fantastic tour of the historic farm park and an overview of how the Department of Agriculture works. I feel like it wasn't as much community sharing, but that was okay. It was really helping us understand the context that they're working within. Definitely one of the challenges that was highlighted is that the national parks and planning, is that their?
Maryland National Capital Parks and
National
Planning
Cap-
Commission.
yeah. They are tasked with maintaining the land and the facilities, but the land and facilities are actually owned by the county. So every time the county, the Department of Agriculture, tries to do what they want to do to update the facilities, to add additional resources that will help the farmers of today, they are told no, they can't do it. And it sounds like the priority for the national capital, oh my God, why can't I never?
Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission. Don't ask me
Maybe
why I
because
know
it's
that,
so
but
long.
It's too long an acronym.
Yes. Their priority is to maintain the history of agriculture in our area, but it is not to actually help and aid and support those who are working in agriculture today. So they seem to be at cross purposes and they can't get things done. So that feels like a really appropriate area for some advocacy from our part. I think first, obviously, we need to learn more. What's the history of this relationship? Why did they establish it that way? Since the county owns the land, do they have the right to sever that agreement? And I am sure that there are lawyers, I mean, obviously that's above our pay grade, but clearly, if we want the agricultural reserve to survive, then we need to support our modern day agricultural workers and farms, and they're not able to do that under the current relationship. And I anyway, so that's what I would like to do, is to kind of put some of our efforts behind learning more about that relationship and what can we do to advocate for our agriculture department being able to do what the farmers around here keep asking them to do, because their hands are tied.
Yeah, and in that context, it's probably good to make sure we keep close to Bob Sissel and the his group too, because they
Yep,
probably know far
absolutely.
more than we do about it.
Yeah.
The other thing we talked about as a result of this was that it might be a nice idea, since we've got on the calendar National Farmers Day, which is October 12th, to do some kind of celebration and acknowledgement of farmers out here. So we're trying to set up a call in the next couple of weeks with Mike Sheffel from the Ag Department and Tara, who's our events coordinator. Jim's already spoken to her about helping with this, but hoping we can get something off the ground. I mean, the difficulty with farmers, obviously, is they're busy all the time during that time of the year.
I know, it's a terrible time to have the National Farm Day.
Bob called me and said the best time to do it actually is August, the second week in August, but it's
Harvest
probably not a
time in
good time for
October.
people because they're not here. So we'll work on that, but I think that's a really great idea, because obviously we're right smack in the middle of the Ag Reserve, and having us sponsor it would be a really neat thing.
And just for context for everyone, that was one of it was identified by local farmers that there just isn't an awareness of what does modern day farming look like. And so one of the areas that we thought we could step in, as the town of Poolesville and as the Fair Access Committee, was to host an event that would start to raise awareness about, this is the GIS guided system that they use to drive tractors, or, you know what I mean? It's not, people have this very nostalgic view of what farming is, and it's not what farming is today. And if we're going to recruit the next generation of farmers, we need to do some PR work on the behalf of land workers. And so I think that's an area where we can help facilitate and provide some leadership.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Can I just go back for a second? I don't fully understand where you started. I don't fully understand, like, this group that, the whatever, the long acronym people.
Yeah.
The National Capital Parks and Planning, did I say it
The
right?
Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission.
God.
So they're the maintenance.
Yeah.
Apparently, they maintain also PG County, not just Montgomery County.
Yeah, it's not just our area.
So is it, I mean.
Do they maintain our
are they-
county
There's-
parks?
All I know, I haven't read it, but Mike held up actually an
binder.
MOU
Yeah.
Okay.
that they have with them, so I don't know when that was, I know it was done years ago. I don't know what it
feel like it
tells
was
them to
the
do, that, we don't know
70s.
much at all.
But it
It's
wasn't
just
that
an
long
MOU.
ago.
I mean, is it a government group or is it
Yeah,
a private
it's
group?
a joint body.
Government subcommittee.
Joint body, it's not just our county, but it's also Prince George's County.
But it
They
is
actually helped come up with a plan
I think it's a state.
back in '64 that led it's called the Wedges and Corridors Plan, that led to the Ag Reserve. PG County decided not to go that direction, but we did.
So do they do anything else? I mean, is that what this?
I don't
group
know a
does
lot about them.
entirely?
So,
I just,
Nancy, they are the zoning, basically like our planning commission for the county. So one of the things they do is all of the same things we do, but just for the county as a whole. And then they have, special authority. The county council sits as the commission for certain things. So sometimes it is the county itself that is dealing with these things as well.
Yeah.
So it was created more or less to make zoning and things like that uniform around DC. That was the biggest
I see.
push of it.
yeah.
I see.
We do have a planning department ourselves, but they actually can't do some things. It's because
Okay.
it's got to be done through MMCCPS or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Anyway, we
Well,
have a lot
that
more to learn.
is, yeah, that is what it
We
is.
don't know
We
what-
have a lot more to learn. But so the third branch of, or the third point that came out of that conversation we had at locals with all of the representatives of different sort of farmers and agricultural workers in the area. So there was the things that they wanted to have done, like a larger storage facility or areas where new farmers could like practice learning how to farm, like an incubator system where they could do small farms that could later on turn into larger farms. That would, the agriculture department, the Montgomery County Agriculture Department would be able to help support those and do those, but they don't have control over the land. So that's one part of it. The public awareness and the broader training pipeline for future farmers of Montgomery County is sort of the second. And then the third was, how do we support the sales of products coming from the agricultural reserve right now? And so I wanted to circle back to, I know Visit Montgomery is working on some branding
Right.
for our area, so I would like to follow up with them as well. That's kind of like the third,
Yeah.
I don't know, main point. I feel like that came out of that conversation. Do you know where they are in the process?
Yeah, in fact, they've already had 3 focus groups, and they've had a bunch of, they had a survey that was done with a lot of, I
Yeah, I
think some of
remember
you guys
that.
probably filled it out too. And they're digesting all that, so I think they're pretty, I think by May, they're actually gonna, and they promised to brief the town of Poolesville on where they are before they actually release it.
Okay,
I
good.
think that's like May is when they're gonna brief you guys. So you're on this calendar to be briefed.
Because what farmers were hoping for is a sort of unified recognizable label that goes on all their products, so that people in DC and other counties can be like, oh, I want to buy local. And
That's a
here's
good
this
idea.
product made in Montgomery County, in the
Right.
Ag Reserve.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That's great, thanks, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
so that's all I have for them.
I wanted Laura to speak a little bit about the video, if there's anything else there, but I just wanted to close by talking a little bit about the pool today. Believe it or not, it seems like it's a long way away, but it
It's
actually
not.
takes
It
months to
comes
get
so
it,
quickly.
get it underway. So we already have a contract signed for this coming year for the catering, so that's all taken care of. One of the ideas that I was thinking about, kind of to your point here, is that maybe we this year have a panel on continuing inequities in our area. So one of them might be, Jenny Farmer, for example, at the ag session, talked about having some kind of a cooling facility that you could actually have with enough capacities to store a lot more of the stuff that's grown out here, so you can actually take it other places. And because one of the problems is you can't really do it very well right now.
People are driving produce up to Pennsylvania.
They've got those kind of storage facilities. We
Because
don't.
we don't have large enough. She has one, but it's not big enough.
It's not big.
And so, and the county has one too, also not big enough.
Right.
Also at an angle. People can't use pallets. You can't use a
A lifter.
lifter to move
pallet
pallets.
in.
So you can only use it for like hand carrying. So, I mean, it's not what they
Antiquated.
need.
It's not very big.
If you want to people to like go to scale so that they can start growing produce that really will be able to feed our region, it's not to scale.
But another example is that when we have the school lunch summer programs, we have to go to Clarksburg. So having a panel like that, just reminding them that, there's still a lot of work to do, and there are a lot of
The food-
inequities
the
that
food
still haven't been addressed.
insecurity that is like compounded by distance.
Right.
from-
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we'll come up with categories, and then, like, for example, if we're dealing with agriculture, if we're dealing with seniors, we're dealing with like continuing to push the thing about rec centers, because I feel still strongly that our seniors get shortchanged when other communities have buses that will come pick seniors up to do activities.
Right.
Yeah. Or even have a
The
community center
transportation.
in their community where they can go to.
Well, yeah, that's the bigger one. But yeah, so I think if we come up with maybe categories and then have a panel
Right.
where people on that panel can speak to different issues, the key is not watering down with so many things.
I was just
Right.
gonna say that.
but
Ed.
like
I feel
our
like.
top 3 to 5.
Yes.
And you can
we-
have a moderator who kind of does some opening remarks that lays out a little bit of a broader picture.
Yeah.
Because these are 3 illustrative examples.
So we got link
Here's the problem.
moderating.
It goes across, 87 domains.
Yeah.
We're going to give you 3 illustrative examples that will give you a sense of
Yeah.
this bigger
Yeah,
problem.
I like that.
Okay. Anyway, keep your thinking caps on, because we got time, but it'll go fast. So,
Think about whose voice we need to hear that we haven't heard from.
yes.
Or whose voice we've heard from, but we haven't really moved with advocacy
Yeah.
on their behalf.
Do you think you want to hear, do we want people on the panel who are people who would be the beneficiaries of these things, or people who are, like, do you want, Katie, who knows the landscape really well with some
Or-
of these things?
or
do
someone
we
from the
want
community
somebody
she serves,
from the
kind of.
community she
think a
serves who
mix.
can talk about?
I think a mix, and if there's a way to find something for youth to be on that panel somehow.
To be good.
Yep.
Are we outgrowing the room that we've been having in the elementary school? Because it has been packed.
It's a good and bad thing.
It is
good
good,
because
you're right,
it's
because then
packed.
it, yeah.
Optics wise, it's great.
And it's standing room only,
right,
and you know, you gotta be a
We'll keep it
VIP
there then, we'll keep it
to
there.
get in there.
But I
And
think
we did
logi-
invite Jeff for,
logistically, it's hard. We were gonna do it at one time, we think, let's do it at the high school.
Right,
We had
I
a
was gonna
bigger-
say they
But then
closed
they
down
gotta
that
come all the way back to
road.
the parade
Yeah,
if they're gonna
yeah.
be in it, so
Yeah.
it,
It is nice to have it there at the starting point.
logistically, the best spot really to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
because you actually not, everyone's not rushing out as fast
Right,
to get to the starting point.
right.
Yeah.
Laura, is anything on the video you wanted to mention? We got interviews set up on Monday, or the 17th, I know. Is there anything else that we need to do?
Not anything we need to do, just excited about the direction, walking down history lane, and really hearing from voices, that have been advocating for decades on behalf of Western Montgomery County. And just to demonstrate the grit and tenacity and the willingness to work for the long haul to get it done. So no, just excited about the direction. And if anybody has any ideas, Link has really outlined a lot of moments that we can touch on and over those years. But if anybody has anything else they think they would like to contribute, I think this direction for the video was born out of why was Fair Access founded, right? I think, Link, you get that question in the community. I think other folks may as well. So it's going to answer that question for folks.
And it's about what are we talking about, 3.5 minutes at most or something like that?
At most, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I sent you guys a storyline too, so if you have any thoughts after you see it, and also this timeline helps, I think, too.
I like that
so,
timeline.
Yeah. Okay, anything else anybody's got?
Do you have any updates on the signage for the school?
Oh,
Rosenwald.
yeah.
Yes, the Rosenwald School.
Yeah, the language is done. Tina Clark actually liked it, so I think we're in good shape there.
That's a blessing.
They actually are trying to get, they got a contract, I think, already to get the sign built. I don't know the timing. I think it's still a ways off, but, but we will, I know we'll know about it before it happens. And I already talked to Skip about it, Etheridge, and he's going to certainly be on top of it too in terms of planning it, because we want to make sure the Jerusalem community is really a big part of this, because they're the ones who made, it's their community, and they're the ones who made that school happen, so.
And I think it would be good for us to coordinate with the Lynching Memorial Project, just because they are very well
They know about it.
organized, especially with the rest of the county
Yep.
and the region.
Yeah, Neely, I sent her information,
Yeah.
so she knows about it, so. Yep, but that's a good idea.
It'd be good to even get footage of that piece too, of whenever we have that event.
Oh, yeah.
So we got video, because I think it's important for every opportunity to debunk the myth about our region, because when you have the stereotypical view of Poolesville, right, but you miss out on the true story of Poolesville and the surrounding area. And so anything that you do that benefits Poolesville, it also benefits the surrounding area. So when folks are making a decision, they get to see the true diversity of Poolesville. Like I said before, not just in terms of racial diversity, but you see economic diversity. And I think that point is really important to drive home, so folks don't just think that, Poolesville is just a town of big houses, farms, and they'll be okay.
The forgotten history.
Yeah,
of
and the
all
forgotten
these-
history.
These thriving small communities that we have here.
Yep.
Actually, in that regard, I'll send you guys an interesting paper that Mary Blair, who's a professor at the University of Maryland, did about Big Woods. She's in incredible research, but what she found, that's the only community that was actually established with free blacks before the Civil War. So all the rest of them were pretty much after the Civil War, but Big Woods was not. And the interesting thing she found was that she tried to get good census data about how much farm goods were produced in Big Woods. And she found that it was probably intentional, but they had defined farms in such a way that none of the farms, or almost none of the farms in Big Woods, were included in the census data. So it looked like they were not producing much, and her research found other sources that said, in fact, they were producing a lot and contributing to the agriculture in this way, in this area, in a big way. So it's just, another example of kind of historical discrimination that
Yes.
was not uncommon.
Well,
but-
and how history has been written by people who want to project a certain,
Right,
view. So
Right.
that's fantastic. I would love to read that.
yeah, it's a good paper. So. Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
Alan, thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate the work you're doing on this.
Yeah. Always.
Progress.
We didn't ask any tough questions, though. We should ask you a tough question. Anybody want to make
A motion, we close?
A second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Laura. We'll be I'll see you Monday, I guess.
All right.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.